Do you remember the video when I was showing different Scandinavian styles and I found my old apartment on this realtor's website? I don't know if you remember this, but it made me think about how much I've grown in my style since I was 20 when I moved to my first apartment. My first apartment was 42.5 square meters and it had a great layout, and I'm very happy for those 7 years that I had in that apartment. And it wasn't necessarily very small. I think 42 or 43 square meters is quite a reasonable size. I've lived there with boyfriends and that was fine. But I think I've learned a lot about how to decorate a smaller room or a smaller apartment and still make it cozy and nice and unique. I think the most important thing when you are decorating your home is to make it your own home. You wanna have that feel of comfort and feeling relaxed when you're there, but you also wanna make space for the things that make you, you. So if you are a creative person like myself, I like sewing my own clothes and I always have different projects going on. I need to decorate my home into a space where I can do that and live the way I want. Today we're gonna talk about 5 common mistakes that I've done and I'm still doing. So I'm also talking to myself in this video. But things that I think can be helpful for you when you are decorating your smaller apartment or a smaller room. Just gonna grab some tea. All right, let's talk about the first thing. I know, and I don't know if this is a very Scandinavian thing or a very Western thing, I think it is, but we are very afraid of darker colors when decorating smaller apartments or smaller rooms, or sometimes even medium-sized rooms and apartments. And you can see that my walls are white and I like them being white, but this is also because I want to be able to film and not have the color of the walls interact with the colors of the objects that I'm taking photos of or filming. So this is also kind of my photo studio or film studio. But if you're not using your home to create content, I definitely think you should go for colors that make you feel safe, happy, creative, anything that you want to feel in your home. What people are afraid of when it comes to darker colors is that it will make the space look smaller. And yes, this is true when it comes to certain things, but it's also not true because the space isn't actually being smaller because you are painting it darker. You can still furnish it the way that you want to, even though the walls are dark green or navy or a nice warming burgundy color. You can still have the same sized couch even if your walls are olive green or white, it doesn't matter. Go for a color that you really love instead of just going white. And I know a lot of people rent their homes and they are scared of painting the room because they have to paint it back. But painting, I mean, it can be time consuming if you have a lot of things that you need to cover or move around to be able to paint, but painting is quite fun and it doesn't take that much time, honestly. And if you have your walls one color and then you paint them back to white, I mean, no one will notice and you will be fine. I also think it's important that even if we rent or we live in a space only for 3 months or 4 months or a year, I think it's still important to make it your own space during that time, because I've lived in places where I knew I was only gonna stay there for 3 or 4 months when I was studying and I was living in a student home, and I still tried to make it as cozy as possible. And knowing what I know now as an adult 10 years later, I would make it even more unique. So I think you should definitely make your space cozy and homey and fit for your style and your needs. Let me show you some examples of nice and cozy rooms with different colors. I really love olive green. I actually had my last home in Stockholm we had painted the walls in a brownish, like green color, and it was super cozy. I also had that room be bright pink, and it was at the same time as I was launching my very feminist communications agency, and this very bright color was perfect for that vibe that I had in my life at that time. But I really liked this darker green brownish color. I think navy can be super cool and impactful as well, but I associate this navy color with people that like Harry Potter and this style of furniture. But if that's your style, definitely go for that. I also think we use too little like burgundy and burnt like pink and terracotta. I think that can be also very impactful. And it also doesn't have to be a very dark color, it can just be a color. Don't be afraid of colors just because you have a smaller room or a smaller apartment. A very common mistake that people do when they live in a smaller home is not using statement pieces. And a statement piece can be both a big and bold piece, but it can also be fun and unique and interesting in the design. And it can be your couch, it can be your coffee table, it can be a chair, it can be your ceiling lamp, it can be anything. It can also be an art piece that you have on the wall. And I think it's super important that we actually use those statement pieces when we are decorating a smaller apartment, because you want to make the most of the space that you have. And again, you want to show your guests and whoever comes into your home who you are, but you also want to show yourself that you're giving yourself what you think is pretty and what you feel is important to you. So I think we should think about creating homes that makes us happy and emphasizes who we are. This is a mistake that I've done so many times. In my first home, I had everything, basically everything IKEA. And I think a lot of people in Sweden have this style where it's light and fresh and airy, and it can be cozy and so on, but it doesn't have any personality. It doesn't have any statement pieces at all. And it's just like everything is from IKEA, so you can kind of find the same piece in every apartment in Sweden. And I think, I'm not gonna be too anthropological here, but I think it says a lot about Swedish culture. Like, we want to be like everyone else, but we also want to have, or we do have, like a better standard. So we don't need to kind of DIY many times. Anyways, not gonna go too deep into that. Maybe in another video, but I think it's important to bring out some playfulness when you are decorating your home, also when it's small. Let me show you some great statement pieces that I think you can go for if you like this style. And I think sometimes when we see a thing, there are times when you kind of feel your heart beat faster, and you kind of feel it in every cell of your body that you love that piece. I think best case, you should have all of the things in your home be that way. But I know sometimes we need to be practical and so on, but you want to opt for pieces that make you feel a certain way. A big mistake when decorating a smaller apartment or a smaller room is to only use small things. You have a smaller couch, you have a smaller chair, you have a small lamp, like everything is tiny and little and small. And I think it is because we think that we can't fit things into the room or the apartment, or that it will be too big. But then it ends up maybe not being as comfortable as it could be, and also not very unique or personal, because you're only using things based on their size rather than the style that you want to have. And the worst thing I think, and that I've felt a lot when decorating this apartment, is that it looks cluttered. It looks like you have a lot of smaller pieces, but nothing that grounds the rest. So if you have a bigger piece, you can kind of concentrate the other things around that. So if you have if it's important for you to host dinner parties and you really love cooking, or you need a big table for some other reason, you should really go for a big table. And instead of worrying about the space, take measurements of your space and be creative. Maybe you can actually fit bigger pieces than you think you can if you take the measurements. So go with a measuring tape when you are shopping or when you're thrifting, and see if it's is this possible? Do I love this table? Yes. If yes, go for it. We used to have a quite small cafe table in this room, and that was because that was the only table that we had. And I know this is obviously also a matter of money. Not everyone has the money to just go out and get everything that we want at the same time. Some people do, and I guess good for them, but we didn't. So it took us some time to find a bigger table, but again, Facebook Marketplace is a great place. And what I did when I found our dining table, was that I posted it in the group for Swedes living in Copenhagen, and I was like, hey, does anyone have a table like this one for sale? And I posted some photos, and this guy texted me and he was like, I actually have this in my basement and I've been meaning to sell it, but I didn't have the time, and it's yours if you want it. So we bought it from him, and he was super kind and he helped us deliver it because we also don't have a car. So be creative when you're looking for pieces, and ask around if you don't find what you're looking for on Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist or wherever you are looking for secondhand find. Don't be afraid of bigger things. This is also something that we've been struggling with. So our apartment is quite high. I think we have a good ceiling height. It's not as high as in our old apartment, but our first apartment here in Copenhagen had 4 meters of ceiling height, which is not the common thing. But this apartment, I think it has 250 to, I don't know, I will have to measure to see what height we have here, but we have a good amount of height. Something that I've been meaning to do in this apartment and to do more of, and that I encourage you to do, is to use the height of your walls. This can mean that you put a shelf very high up, or also that you put arch very low down. I think it's fun to play with those dimensions. So on this side of me, we have a picture wall here, and I've purposely put the art quite high on the wall, because if you have everything at the same height, it kind of draws the eye down and you feel smaller and it doesn't feel as spacious. So use the walls, use the height, use it for storage high up, or put art on your ceiling. Put things high up, put plants high up. You can always use a chair when you need to water that. I think we should be better at putting things higher up and not have everything be the same height. This will make the room feel more dynamic and give you more creative opportunities to use the room the way that you want it to. I saw a video on YouTube where someone actually had painted the ceiling with different patterns, and then they had art on the ceiling. I would love to do that, but I don't know how to attach it to our very hard to drill in ceilings, but that would be super cool. So if you can do that, I think that's a great idea. This last thing that I wanted to mention is something that is also connected to the first thing that I mentioned about color. It's super important that you use more lamps in your home, especially if you have a smaller home or a smaller apartment. Don't be afraid to use more lamps. Light is such a fun way to kind of design your home, and I would love to have more lamps. I would love to have a little light above the art piece that I have on that wall. That would be very nice. I think one cute way is to add those candle sconces. I find them all the time in the thrift store. Using candle sconces is super cozy, especially if you live in Scandinavia like I do, and we have so many hours when it's quite dark. We need every piece of light that we can get, and lights, lamps, candles, all of those things are so important to make a space feel lived in and cozy. I really like shooting in daylight, so obviously a big window is important too, but don't be afraid of lamps. I have this fun lamp that I got from my parents when they sold our house that I grew up in, and I would love to have a wall-mounted piece. I've talked about this a lot, about how wall-mounted lamps are super fun, and you can use one of those that you can kind of move around. So if you have like a reading nook and then you kind of move it, and it will be above your table and so on. So that's also a fun way. You can use lamps that you have on the floor and that cast the light up onto your wall, or just creates a nice mood light around it. There are so many fun ways that you can use light in your apartment, and this will emphasize the color of your walls, and you can play around with that too. I actually have a video where I only talk about nice lamps, and I should probably do another one because it seems like you like that one, and I also have more lamps that I want to discuss with you. Okay, the camera battery died, so I guess this is it for today. If you like this video, please like it. That would be super kind of you, and I hope to see you in the next video. And also, please let me know what kind of videos you would like to see, because last week I posted one about sewing. I posted a lot about home decor and styles, and that's also very fun to film. And next week I hope, or the week after, to be able to post a video about how to host and how to create a nice experience for your guests. So if you have any ideas on videos that you would like to see from me, please let me know.